Hello, I'm Sam. I'm 21, living in Asmall Town in Maine. Winters here are harsh and life moves slowly, but it's peaceful. Most days, there's not much going on. People spend their time doors sipping hot coffee and watching the snow quietly blanket everything inside. It's the kind of town where a Virione knows everyone else's stories and secrets rarely stay hidden. My routine is predictable: college class during the day, occasional work shifts at the local hardware store, and evenings usually spent reading or playing video games. My parents have long moved south, leaving me with our old family house near the center of town. It's not a glamorous life, but I've grown comfortable with their simplicity, especially when winter comes. Even though the snow and cold can feel endless, there's something comforting about the stillness, the quiet isolation of it all. One of the few close connections I have here is with my best friend, Ryan. We grew up together, attended the same schools, and spent countless winters building snow forts and sledding down hills behind his family's old house. Ryan's mum, Laura, recently moved back to town after a difficult divorce. She now lives just a few houses down from mine. Laura, 42, a high school teacher who always seems cheerful and composed. But Ryan once mentioned something that stuck with me. Laura has a deep fear of the dark triggered by something traumatic that happened when she was younger. I've never thought much about Laura beyond the usual respect for a friend's mum, but since she's moved back, I've found myself noticing her more. There's a quiet elegance about her, a gentle warmth hidden behind her frequent smiles. Sometimes I catch myself looking a bit longer than I should, quickly shaking off those thoughts and reminding myself that she's my best friend's mum. One evening, everything changed. The forecast warned us of a major snowstorm, nothing unusual for Maine. But when it was more intense than expected. Thick snowflakes swirled furiously, driven by gusting winds that howled around the old houses. Soon, power across the entire town flickered and then vanished, completely plunging everything into darkness. I sat alone in my living room, lit by a single candle and the dying warmth of the place, listening to the eerie silence that only a blackout in a snowstorm could bring. My thoughts drifted to Laura, suddenly remembering a fear. Without really thinking, I felt a sudden urgency to check on her. I pulled on my boots, heavy coat, and scarf, bracing myself for the cold, biting wind as I stepped outside. Fueled had transformed into an endless sea of white. The snow was deep already, making the short walk feel more difficult than usual. My breath came out in clouds as I trudged carefully down the street, glancing around at the darkened houses. Laura's house appeared especially quiet, with no lights visible in any of the windows. My heart clenched slightly and he quickened my pace. When I finally reached her porch, I knocked gently on the door. There was no immediate response, and for a moment I wondered if she'd gone somewhere else, maybe tossed with friends. But then the door opened slowly and Laura stood there, her face, pale eyes wide with barely contained anxiety. Sam, her voice was hesitant, clearly relieved, yet surprised to see me standing in the snow. "Hey Laura," I said softly, trying to sound reassuring. "I just wanted to check in on you. Ryan once told me you don't like the dark, and I figured you might not want to be alone right now." She stared at me for a moment, processing my words. Then her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you," she said quietly, visibly touched. "You're right. I'm really glad you're here." I stepped inside, shaking snow off my boots as she closed the door behind me. The house felt unusually cold and silent, shadows dancing across the walls and the faint moonlight filtering through the curtains. I reached into my pocket, pulling out a box of matches I'd grabbed from home. "Do you have candles?" I asked gently. Laura nodded, pointing shakily towards the kitchen. In the cabinet next to the stove, I quickly found them and lit several candles around the room. The warm flickering glow immediately chased away some of the oppressive darkness, making the space feel safe and cozy again. Laura watched quietly, wrapping her arms around herself, clearly still unsettled. "Wouldn't we sit down?" I suggested, gently guiding her toward the couch. "Maybe we can talk a bit, distract you from the storm." She smiled weakly, grateful for my presence. As we settled down onto the couch, surrounded by the comforting glow of candlelight, I found myself noticing her in ways I hadn't before. The soft shadows played gently across her face, highlighting the delicate lines around her eyes, the gentle curve of her lips, and the subtle strength beneath her vulnerability. For the first time, Laura wasn't just Ryan's mother. She was an incredibly beautiful Woman, someone who seemed fragile yet undeniably appealing in the skeet intimate moment. Imitate. It quickly pushed the thought aside, feeling a flush rise to my cheeks, grateful for the dim lighting to hide it. Instead, I focused on helping her feel safe and comfortable. Do you want to talk about something? I asked softly, breaking the quiet. Maybe it'll help take your mind off the dark. Laura hesitated briefly, then nodded, taking a deep breath. It's silly, isn't it? A grown woman scared of the dark. It's just, something happened when I was young. Since then, whenever it's dark and I'm alone, I feel helpless, trapped. It's not silly at all, I assured her gently. We all have fears. I'm glad you're letting me help you through this. She looked up, her eyes softening clearly, comforted by my understanding. Thank you, Sam. You being here means more than you know. As the snowstorm continued to rage outside, we fell into a quiet, comfortable rhythm of conversation. I began telling her stories, memories from my childhood, funny moments with Ryan, even small details about my life that I hadn't realized were important. In return, Laura began opening up, sharing snippets of her past, her struggles, and eventual glimpses of her dreams and hopes for the future. With each moment that passed, I found myself feeling more drawn to her, captivated by her warmth and sincerity. Sitting there bathed in candlelight, I felt an undeniable pull towards her that he couldn't fully explain. It was gently yet powerful, leaving me wondering how I'd missed seeing her like this all these years. In that quiet, candle-lit room, something had undeniably changed. Laura was no longer just my best friend's mother. She was Somi and a special someone I wanted to protect, comfort, and know better. Though I didn't fully understand these newfound feelings, I knew one thing for certain. Tonight marked the beginning of something neither of us had anticipated, and I was eager yet cautious about where it would lead. We sat quietly in the soft glow of the candles, listening to the muffled sound of the storm outside. The occasional gust of wind made the old house creak gently, but inside the atmosphere was surprisingly peaceful. Laura had relaxed somewhat, her breathing steadier, and I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing my presence had helped soothe her fears, even if just a little. Thank you again, Sam. Laura finally broke the silence, her voice soft and sincere. I really don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come by tonight. No, it seems ridiculous, but ever since I was little, the dark has terrified me. It's not ridiculous, I said gently, shifting slightly on the sofa, so I could face her better. We all have things that scare us. Do you want to talk about it? She hesitated for a moment, looking down at her hands clasped in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled slightly, revealing a vulnerability I'd never seen from her before. When I was 8 years old, she began quietly, her eyes reflecting the flickering candle light. I was home alone during a blackout like this. My parents had gone next door to help neighbors, promising they'd be back quickly. But then I heard noises, strange, frightening sounds, and my imagination took over. I hid under my bed, convinced something terrible was coming for me. They found me hours later, terrified and shaking. Since then, I've never been able to handle the darkness alone. I listened carefully, feeling deep empathy as she shared this intimate piece of her past. I understand why it still affects you, I said gently. Trauma like that doesn't just disappear. She nodded clearly, grateful for my understanding. Most people don't take it seriously. They say I should just get over it, but it's not that simple. No, it's not. I agreed softly, holding her gaze reassuringly. And you shouldn't feel bad about it. Laura smiled warmly, visibly comforted by my words. Her smile, gentle and genuine, made something in my chest tighten slightly, a feeling I wasn't yet ready to fully explore. After a short silence, she turned the conversation toward me. What about you, Sam? You've been so kind and patient tonight, but I realize I hardly know much about your own life, your hopes, your dreams. I sighed quietly, leaning back into the sofa, staring thoughtfully into the candle flame. Honestly, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my life right now. I admitted, feeling comfortable enough to share my doubts openly. I've just finished college, but I don't have any real direction. Everyone else seems to have it figured out. Jobs, plans, goals. Meanwhile, I feel completely lost. Laura's eyes softened with understanding. She reached out, placing a hand gently on mine, a simple gesture, yet incredibly comforting. You're not alone in feeling like that, she said softly. When I was your age, I felt exactly the same. It's okay not to have everything figured out. Life isn't our race, even though sometimes it feels that way. Her gentle reassurance stoked something deep within me. Suddenly, Laura wasn't just Ryan's mom or a teacher. She was someone who truly understood what I was feeling, who made them feel seen and valued in a way I hadn't anticipated. I appreciate you saying THA. Their lights softly illuminating Laura's living room and creating a safe, intimate space that felt entirely disparate from the world outside. As the storm still held faintly beyond the walls, our conversation gradually drifted deeper, touching upon hidden emotions and quiet pains we rarely shared with others. Laura leaned back slightly on the sofa, eyes thoughtful. Ash spoke again. Her voice was soft and reflective, filled with quiet melancholy. You know, Sam, after the divorce, I felt completely lost. It wasn't just the marriage that ended. It was a part of my identity. I spent so many years trying to keep our family together, trying to be the perfect wife and mother, that when it all fell apart, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I watched her quietly, feeling a strong sense of compassion at her words. The vulnerability she showed, the genuine nerd in her voice made me ache to comfort her. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been, I said gently, hoping my sincerity was clear. Laura smiled faintly, nodding in gratitude for my understanding. There were days I couldn't get out of. I felt worthless, abandoned, and completely alone. But the hardest part wasn't losing my marriage. It was losing hope. I've been afraid ever since, worried that I'll never find happiness again. Her voice wavered slightly, eyes glistening softly in the candlelight. My heart tightened as I saw tears welling up, slowly slipping down her cheeks. Without thinking, I reached over and gently took her hand in mine, offering silent comfort. Her skin was warm and soft, trembling slightly under my touch. She looked at me, surprised briefly, crossing her face, quickly replaced by an expression of gentle relief. We sat quietly for a long moment, neither speaking, simply absorbing the intimacy of the moment. My thumb gently brushed over the back of her hand in an instinctive gesture meant to soothe. Her breathing gradually steadied and I felt her hand relax slightly within mine. Eventually, Laura broke the silence again, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Sam, I haven't felt this comfortable, safe in a very long time. It's strange, I've known you since you were a kid, and yet tonight you've made me feel more understood than anyone else has in years. I swallowed hard, heart-racing as I met her gaze, recognizing the weight of her words. Laura, I feel the same way. I've spent so long feeling alone, feeling like nobody truly sees where I am or understands what I'm going through. But tonight with you, I feel different, like someone finally sees me clearly. Her eyes softened further, the warmth between us intensifying with every word exchanged. Still, Laura hesitated, clearly torn about her own feelings. But Sam, she continued softly, there are so many complications. I'm twice your age and you're Ryan's best friend. It scares me how strongly I feel connected to you. I worry about how it would happen if anyone found out. Her honesty touched something deep inside me, prompting me to respond with equal sincerity. I know exactly what you mean, I admitted softly, squeezing her hand gently. I've been wrestling with those same fears, worrying about Ryan, about the interference and how others might judge us. But Laura, no matter how hard I try, I can't deny these feelings. They're too real, too important. Laura looked deeply into my eyes, clearly moved by my honesty. She exhaled softly, nodding slowly in agreement. I can't deny it either. It's overwhelming and frightening, yet somehow it feels incredibly right. We fell into an awkward pause, letting the significance of a shared admission settle between us. Outside, the storm seemed to have quieted slightly, though neither of you paid it much attention now. Our world was entirely contained within the gentle flicker of candlelight, within the warmth of our shared connection. Finally, Laura spoke again, her voice quiet, yet resolute. Sam, maybe we don't need to have all things was tonight. Maybe it's okay just to acknowledge this feeling, to let ourselves experience it without having to define exactly what it means yet. Ismailed softly, deeply grateful for her maturity and thoughtfulness. I think that's exactly what we should do, I agreed. Gently, we can figure everything out slowly. The important thing is that we're honest with each other. Laura nodded, smiling tenderly. Honesty and openness. That's exactly what I need right now, and you're giving me that. I felt a warmth radiate through me, a powerful yet quiet certainty that what we shared was genuinely special. Without consciously guessing, I found myself leaning slightly closer to Laura. She met me halfway, her forehead lightly resting against mine, a gesture full of tenderness and trust. Neither of us moved to go further, simply savoring the gentle closeness, our breathing soft and synchronized. "I'm scared, Sam," she whispered softly, eyes briefly closing in a gentle vulnerability. Not just of the dark, but of opening myself up again. Of trusting Smione and risking getting hurt again. "I'm scared too," I admitted quietly, my voice gentle yet steady. "But I'm also more certain about this about us than I've been about anything in a very long time." She opened her eyes again, holding my gaze steadily, searching for reassurance and finding it clearly reflected in my expression. "You really mean that, don't you?" she asked softly, voice barely audible. "With all my heart," I responded quietly, gently cupping her cheek in my hand, my thumb softly wiping away a lingering tear. "We'll navigate teethers carefully, respectfully, but I didn't want to lose what we found tonight." "It means too much." Laura smiled gently, visibly comforted by my words. She reached up slowly, softly, covering my hand with her own, leaning slightly into my touch. Her voice trembled slightly, yet held quiet strength. "I trust you, Sam, more than I've trusted anyone in a very long time." We remained close like that for a long moment, allowing our connection to deepen even further. Eventually, well and back slightly, but our hands remained gently intertwined, a silent acknowledgement of the bond we'd formed. The storm outside seemed distant now, insignificant compared to the intensity of what we'd shared. We knew there were challenges ahead, questions to answer, complications to face. But in that moment, we chose simply to savor the intimacy we'd created, comforted by the genuine understanding and affection that bound us together. As the candles burned lower, casting softer shadows across the room, I felt an unspoken promise passing quietly between us, a mutual willingness to explore the depth of our feelings slowly, carefully, and with the respect they deserved. We weren't rushing headlong into uncertainty. Instead, we're cautiously embracing something rare and beautiful that had emerged naturally between us. Sitting there with Laura, I felt more certain than ever before about one thing. This unexpected connection had profoundly changed both of us, and no matter where our journey led, neither of us would ever forget this gentle, life-changing night. The hours passed quickly each minute, stretching out gently into the next as Laura and I remained close, held together by a bond we'd forged during that long candle-lit night. The storm outside had gradually softened into silence, leaving only a fresh blanket of snow and a serene stillness that enveloped the small town. Yet neither of us paid much attention to the changing weather. Our entire focus centered on the peaceful, comforting space we had created between us. We spent the night talking quietly, sharing stories of our lives, our dreams, our fears, and everything in between. There was no rush, no pressure, just honest, heartfelt conversation that brought us closer together. Though the physical closeness we shared was limited, the occasional gentle touch of hands, a comforting embrace, the emotional intimacy that formed was deep and meaningful. Laura rested her head gently on my shoulder as we sat together, wrapped in blankets on her couch, surrounded by the warmth of candlelight. We spoke quietly about memories from the past, dreams for the future, and the quiet fears we held for what lay ahead. The gentle rhythm of our breathing, the steady beating of our ears created a sense of harmony and understanding neither of us had experienced in a long while. Eventually, the darkness outside the windows began to soften into shades of pale grey and pink, signaling the arrival of dawn. At nearly the same moment, a low hum filled the room as the power was restored, lights flickering back to life through Laura's house. We both glanced upward briefly, acknowledging the end of our shared isolation. Yet neither of us moved immediately. Instead, we remained quietly together for a few more precious minutes, savoring the gentle intimacy we'd found. Finally, Laura lifted her head slowly, meeting my gaze with a tender yet slightly melancholic smile. "It looks like our quiet night is over," she said softly, gently squeezing my hand. Her voice was tinged with regret and sadness, knowing we had to face their realities waiting beyond this perfect isolated moment. "I suppose it is," I pleaded quietly, feeling a sense of loss already settling within me. "But I'm so glad we had tonight." Laura nodded slowly, her expression becoming more serious, thoughtful. "Sam, before you go, I think we need to talk a bit about the future. My heart tightened slightly, knowing this conversation was inevitable, yet feeling a gentle anxiety rising within me. Of course, I responded softly, preparing myself for her words. She took a slow, steady breath before continuing, her voice, gentle yet resolute. What happened tonight, the connection we felt, it was real. I haven't felt so genuinely understood, valued, and comfortable in years. But at the same time, we both know there are Cal and Jess ahead of us. Our age difference, our relationship with Ryan, and what people might say, it worries me deeply. And nodded slowly, understanding her concerns entirely, sharing them myself. I know, I agreed quietly. Those worries shave. Been on my mind too. But Laura, what I feel for you, it's real power fuel and undeniable. I don't.